So a lot of people nowadays are talking about the Anunnaki this, the Anunnaki that, but I'm here to say that all that stuff is just bogus. So the whole story about the Anunnaki being extraterrestrials thing came about from a guy in the 70s called Zecharia Sitchin. So Zecharia Sitchin took ancient Sumerian texts like the Enuma Elish, and then he added this whole false narrative to it. He added the narrative that, oh, it's talking about aliens and extraterrestrials, but if you actually read the Enuma Elish, you'll find out that it's not talking about aliens. It's certainly not talking about interstellar space travel. It doesn't talk about any of that sci-fi stuff that Zecharia Sitchin claimed it to talk about. So why did so many people just take Zecharia Sitchin's story at face value and not question it at all? Why didn't anybody just go to the primary sources, which are the Enuma Elish, and just read it for themselves and realize, wait a second, the Enuma Elish isn't actually talking about those things? Well, I think it's because back then in the 70s, finding the Enuma Elish was a lot bigger of an ordeal than it is nowadays. Nowadays, you just kind of go to the internet and you Google it, and then you find a free PDF of the Enuma Elish, and that's all it takes. But back in the 70s, it took a lot more. You had to go to the library, and who knows if the library even had that text. And so I think that's how it kind of spread. But nowadays, we know better. We have the Enuma Elish right there on the internet. You can just Google it and read it. So if somebody like Zecharia Sitchin says that the Enuma Elish is talking about extraterrestrials, then you better read the actual Enuma Elish and see for yourself whether it's actually talking about extraterrestrials, because it's very easy to find it and it's very easy to read it too. It's yeah. If you go out there right now and you read the Enuma Elish, you'll find out that, wait a second, this text is a lot more ordinary than what Zecharia Sitchin claims it to be. It's literally it's something that you would expect. There's nothing you wouldn't expect from an ancient culture. It's literally just what you'd expect from an ancient culture, writing about their origins and stuff like that. But there's no space talk, there's no interstellar talk, there's no sci-fi talk at all. There's no secret knowledge oh, how did they know this or how did they know that? It must have come from extraterrestrials. No, there's none of that. It's a very ordinary, normal text. Now, Genesis 6, however, the closest thing that we have to the whole Anunnaki story is in Genesis 6, and it's still completely different from the Anunnaki story. Okay, first of all, Genesis 6 talks about these ancient fallen beings that are probably fallen angels called the Watchers, who were already on the earth, and then they see human women and they found them attractive, so they mated with them. And they didn't create us when they mated with them, because the women were already there. When they mated with the women, they created this other species of being called the Nephilim, which were these giants. But I want to make a very clear distinction between both of them. So in the Anunnaki story created by Zecharia Sitchin in the 1970s, the Anunnaki were these extraterrestrials who came to planet Earth, and they created human beings. So in that worldview, in that story, the Anunnaki would be our gods, which is a completely demonic way of looking at the world, right? And which, once again, is not at all what the primary source is saying. If you actually read the Enuma Elish, it's not talking about ancient extraterrestrials, okay? It's not talking about ancient extraterrestrials. If you read Genesis 6, on the other hand, it talks about ancient fallen angels, again, not extraterrestrials, but fallen angels who were already on planet Earth, who found human beings who were already there, already created by God, and then they mated with them and created something else and had an offspring that was a different thing altogether. But mind you, in the Genesis 6 story, the fallen beings, the Watchers, who mated with women, did not create human beings. They just mated with them. The human beings were already created by God, already there, okay? So there's a very clear difference between the Anunnaki story, which claims the Anunnaki are whatever, but then in Genesis 6, it makes a lot more sense, because God is still God. God still created us, and the fallen beings that mated with women were just rebelling against God and doing what they were not supposed to. And now, so here's the thing. A lot of the times people look at the pyramids of ancient Egypt and they think, oh, look, isn't that proof that there were like these like ancient extraterrestrials on planet Earth who had such advanced technology that they moved these stones and this and that? Well, no, it's not. To me, it's more a confirmation of the Genesis 6 account, which says that there were these ancient fallen beings which were already on planet Earth who probably had advanced technologies because they were angelic creatures who probably had more means than we did. And so it makes a lot more sense to me that the ancient pyramids of Egypt were made by these fallen angels that are talked about in Genesis 6 and not these Anunnaki beings which were basically rebranded by Zecharia Sitchin. So again, in one of them, in Genesis 6, God is still God, and in Zecharia Sitchin's worldview, the Anunnaki are God, which again is very, very demonic and is something you need to be very careful with. And again, it's something that we know is false because the text that he bases this claim on, the Enuma Elish, do not talk about that. So yeah, but in the Genesis 6 account, it makes a lot more sense because it talks about, again, ancient fallen angels that were already here who just mated with people and created this ancient race of beings called the Nephilim.